Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming the Honorable Minister of State for Information and Broadcasting, Mr. Rajyavardhan Rathore.
Thank you, Major Dalbir and Harjeev, giving me this opportunity. Mr. Jerry, dignitaries present here, young JJ, Jal Kapoor, my two seniors that I can thank them for guiding in my life, both ex-army chiefs, young JJ also an ex-governor. I guess when you come here, you can find out who are the early risers. It's good to see the house, the hall filling early in the morning. I think it's a great this whole process of bringing people together from not just within the country but outside, creating a sort of a think tank, interacting with each other, been given a very apt name of One Globe, connecting the various knowledge communities together. When Harjeev spoke of me being one of the sports persons, mine is the individual sport. And when I'm often questioned about it, I always say that there's nothing that's individual. You may be performing alone, but you have a whole team of people who are behind you. Some are visible and some are invisible. But without the support of each and every one, nothing gets accomplished. And that's so true for doing anything in our community. I am calling the whole world as a community. The borders are shrinking. They're no longer very relevant. And especially nowadays with the information technology, it's literally breaking the barriers. Opportunities that are there in our country can be applied, or the methods to bring about changes in countries can be applied in other countries, other communities. Lessons that we learn in one part of the globe can be applied in other parts of the globe. And this whole interaction, I think, is so critical to taking and shaping the world that we today live in. I've been fortunate to be associated with institutions that are changing rapidly towards becoming better. And now in 2014, when I joined the political fraternity, I've been associated with the political party, with the leadership that actually wants to rapidly change the country. We have a Prime Minister who very clearly, openly talks about not degrees, but the ability to bring about changes, the ability to get a job or to provide jobs. Mind is the most powerful instrument. If you are able to open it, if you are able to sharpen it, and if you are able to provide opportunities, then every mind is capable of doing something capable for not just themselves, their families, but also for the society and the nation. And when you talk about a billion-plus mind in this country, you're actually talking about the rural India, which has till date remained isolated from the very opportunities that we are talking of today. So education became rote learning, was devoid of the practicality that is required towards becoming either entrepreneurs or creating jobs for the others, or finding solutions to the problems within the society or the places that we live in. And when our nation starts talking about skilling India, creating entrepreneurs, a Mudra bank, then we start talking about taking these opportunities to those vast number of people who have till date been devoid of all these opportunities. So of course it requires basic things like infrastructure, roads, electricity, water. Of course it requires all of that. But what beyond that? And I always believe that a government may have any policy. It may be good, bad. But if that scheme, the policy is not known to the people, then certainly there is no advantage coming out of it. So that's pure information. When you travel in the rural India and you stop and ask any villager, any young boy, you name any policy of the government and you ask him to explain, what does he know about it? You'll often find that he knows nothing about it. If you apply your mind, the policies of the government are known by only either the bureaucrats or a few journalists. Not often they are represented in the print or the electronic medium. So how is an ordinary Indian to know about these policies of the government? And unless you don't know about them, how are you to exploit them or to use them to your advantage? And that's information is one of the most basic things to opening up of the mind. Leave aside sharpening it and providing opportunities. I think the Prime Minister has laid a terrific amount of emphasis on the ability of the government to reach out to the people, to inform them of the various schemes and projects the government is starting. And that's one way of adding more people to those schemes so that the schemes become more successful. So we have the print media, we have the electronic media, and that's of course through these mediums that we are reaching out to the people. But more importantly, I think what we've done in the last a year and a half is you make extensive use of social media. You'll be surprised that, and since I come from a rural constituency, every village has young boys on a 5,000 rupee mobile, and they'll have Facebook on it. They'll have WhatsApp on it. A small number of people will also have Twitter on it. It's amazing. There's a very small town called Kotputli. Most people won't even know about it, perhaps. It's between Jaipur and Delhi. That's part of my constituency. It's about 40,000 people live there. It's absolute rural town. I asked one of the mobiles retailers there, I said, how many mobiles do you sell in a day? Can you believe it? He sells 100 mobiles a day. Out of 100 mobiles, how many smart devices that he sells? 80 smart devices out of 100. So we've extensively used the social media to reach out to these large number of youth. To the extent that when the last year's budget speech was made, usually there's a clamor after the budget speech to take interviews of the finance minister. And he literally goes crazy from morning to evening trying to explain to the various channels, and every channel wants a one-on-one interview with the finance minister. So we devised a method we broke up into three parts. The first was the speech itself, which was telecast by the national broadcaster. Then we had a conference, a press conference where all the journalists were there who could ask their queries. And then we had about 3 to 4 eminent people associated with the economy query the finance minister. And after that, in the evening, we had something called a talkathon. So we put him onto a YouTube, and we had people, and of course we advertised about it, and we had people asking questions on Twitter and Facebook. So those are the questions which are not very intellectual driven questions, but basic questions that people want to know. And so we were able to connect the finance minister to all segments of the citizens of the country. And similarly, we've devised that method with various other ministers who are able to reach out, not just on conventional electronic media, but also on the social media. When the Prime Minister started his Man Ki Baat on the radio, it became literally a game changer. Radio, which was relegated to perhaps some back corners of the room, became a center stage in all households. FM radio started becoming more popular with it. So we had the Man Ki Baat go not just on the radio, but also broadcast on the television. We had it streamed on the internet as well. Today, about 45% of the whole nation is covered by FM. In about 2 to 2.5 years, we will cover about 65% of the whole country via FM. Perhaps one of the inadvertent mistakes that the government made years ago, by depending on terrestrial broadcast, we have actually created an asset of 2,000 towers across the whole country. These are the national broadcaster towers. And now that we have these 2,000 towers across the whole country, we cover about 98% of the whole country by our broadcast. Now the whole idea is to use all these towers not just for the television broadcast, but also put FM transmitters on it. Put digital transmitters on it, thereby reducing the frequencies and saving the spectrum space and enhancing the number of channels. So today you have, if you see television on your mobiles, it's via internet. But very soon we will have television on the mobiles through terrestrial. So of course, you will save on the data cost of the service provider, plus it's an alternative means of reaching out to your mobile phones. And we won't just stop at that. There is a method of giving you internet via broadband spectrum. So a village boy, if he wants to have internet, he could query on his GSM SIM, which gets picked up by the broadcaster, and the broadcaster then provides the data through the spectrum direct onto his mobile, which is without any cost except the cost of the GSM. So there are ways and methods that the government is now pursuing to enhance the level of interaction with the youth in the rural areas. And that's opening up their minds. That's allowing them access to what is happening around the world. A conference like this, the discussions that you have, may not remain limited to this room. That's the beauty of today. And of course, it's been happening in the Western countries. But we are excited about it because it's now happening in this country, with a very large number of youth who have been devoid of such knowledge till now. Now, of course, these are still, if not conventional, but contemporary methods of reaching out to the people. Electronic media, print, conventional, social media, internet, newer methods of reaching out to the people. But I'll mention to you about something that used to happen perhaps in the eras of 50s and 60s, reaching out to people via person-to-person connect. Now we have some of the people here would recollect. In the old days, we would have a van drive up to a small town, a village. People would get out, pull out those television screen, pull out a screen, not a television, I beg your pardon, pull out a screen and show black and white films. That used to be the films division of the government of India. They would show these films and then people would collect and then they would talk about some of the government policies as well. They would do a skit, they would do a song, and through that they would tell about the government policies. These may not seem very attractive, but I can assure you that they are extremely powerful methods of reaching out to the people in the rural areas. So we had this sort of defunct skeletal body called Directorate of Field Publicity. This Directorate of Field Publicity was actually doing these field publicity that I just spoke about. Devoid of manpower, devoid of resources, they were not really able to reach out to the people as much as was required. So we have a lot of what we call dark areas where there's no social media, dark areas where there's no television reaching, or there's not enough concentration of television in those areas. So these are dark areas. So we've now tried to focus the Directorate of Field Publicity in these dark areas. And we are not stopping at that. We are now thinking the way we have the national broadcaster, which is Doordarshan, which is a conventional method of reaching out to people. It's a carrier of information. So it carries government information. It also carries entertainment. And it also carries advertisements of the corporates. Now, what if we were to parallelly create an army of people in every district of our country, which is 600 districts, an army of people in every district which does this human-to-human contact and communicates to them the government policies or whatsoever is the message. What if we are able to create that? What if we are able to outsource it to agencies to do this for us? And what if we were to monetize it and ask the corporates that we have this a sort of a highway to the people, and you can broadcast or you can advertise about your commercial products on it. So today the largest market is the rural market for India, and they are capable of making purchases. So they are empowered people financially. And so now we create a method of reaching out to them through this human-to-human contact. And if we monetize it as well, then we bring down the cost of the government to advertise and share it with the corporates and have a viable body that is able to connect to the people and communicate to the people. So these are the various methods by which we are, like what I said right in the beginning, opening up the minds. And once the mind is opened up through Skill India, through Mudra Bank, which is actually creating entrepreneurs, we are able to empower them and provide them with opportunities. And once we have this knowledge that is being shared by all, that is the essence of bringing about a larger amount of change in the whole nation. We also have films, which is a very powerful means of communicating to the people. with the mandate that the government has come into power with, we are making some radical changes in the way the films are being seen in our country. So we have a certification board, which is famously called the Censor Board, which in a way has been clearing or restricting the films by a certain act that has been given, by a certain programming code that's been given to them. Now this Cinematographic Act is of the 1952 vintage. Now in the last couple of months, when the way this certification board was interacting with the film industry, the perception was being created that the restrictions are being placed by the ideology of the government. In the last 1.5 years, the government has neither made one phone call to either clear a film or to restrict a film. So we were of the opinion that why is the government of India being pulled into this whole certification process? And we are not interested in it. And so we created a team led by some of the eminent filmmakers to completely think out of the box. And in about 2 months of time, when they give their presentations, we'll actually have a certification board that we can proudly say is contemporary. We've actually made it very clear to them that the restrictions that can be placed on a film are as it is mentioned in the Constitution of India, where there are reasonable restrictions to freedom of speech. Those are the only restrictions that need to apply on a film. And the audiences and the citizens of the country are mature enough to decide which films they want to see or which they don't want to see. In fact, I'm very happy that of late, there are 2 films, and I won't name them, there are 2 films that seem to be of having explicit content in them that were cleared by us, which have not done well at the box office. And a film which is of a nationalistic variety has actually gone to cross 100 crore market. So the audiences are mature enough to decide what they want to see and what they don't want to see. The government does not have to play a moral police or sorts at all. I was amused to know that there is a service called CBFC service, which is this censor board, which we famously call censor board. There is a service called censor board service. So you have IPS, Indian Police Services, you have Indian Administrative Services, and you have a censor board service. I said, wow, what a lovely service that is. The whole life you sit and just, with a scissor and keep cutting the films. So we're going to take that manpower, perhaps, if that is one of the suggestions, but we are willing to do that. We'll take that manpower, which is the CBFC service, and we'll put them into all the other government departments. Because they've right from the inception, they've had a sort of a baggage that they carry, and they will not perhaps be able to go further away from it. We need to have absolutely fresh thinking people in a country which is looking forward and which is wanting to be absolutely positive about the way they see the things. So in every way, be it communications, that the government's communications that are reaching out to the people through conventional methods, through newer methods, through the soft power that takes our culture to the various shores of the world, things are changing. And it's changing to empower the people of the country. Yet, is that enough? It is not. And that is why one of the most powerful methods of communicating is for the ministers to travel out themselves. Of course, there are only limited number of ministers, but yet when a minister travels out and communicates directly with the people, there is a different sense of understanding, and also of trust that develops. And starting 2016, it may not be very convenient and comfortable for the ministers, but starting 2016, the way Prime Minister is, he's given a directive that every minister will travel out to 2 Lok Sabha constituencies in 1 month and spend 30 hours there at least. So which means going to stay the night with the people. So it started in January, and the theme for January was the budget. So we've of course gone to various places and resourced, and we're supposed to meet the farmers, the laborers, the business people, the small scale industries, the big business people. We're supposed to interact with a whole lot of them and communicate to them, get the feedback and bring it back to the government. So in terms of reaching out to the people, I think of course, and this is not the end of it, so there'll be more brighter ideas, but to opening of the mind to make this world a knowledge economy that we want it to be, there has to be the knowledge that reaches out to people. And for reaching out to the people, one of the most important things is being able to communicate to them and listen to them. And we've been able to do that, and I'm sure we'll continue, and we look forward to more suggestions and ideas to enhance this reach of the government to the people. Thank you all for listening to me. Thank you.